Welcome to The Loving and Effective Parent. My name is James Shaver. Are you ready to learn how to establish and maintain your personal boundary? The boundary we talked about in part 1? Remember? We do not accept any disrespect from our children when they want something from us. That personal boundary is the beginning and the cornerstone of our plan to shut down disrespect and disrespectful behaviors. In this video, we will work on getting that personal boundary established and, in the process, learn what it means to not accept any disrespect. If you haven't seen part 1, you really need to. Part 1 covers 6 concepts and realities we must understand before we try to set up our personal boundary. There's a link in the description. And then there's part 3, the last video in the series. In part 3, we will wrap things up with a number of topics, including the 2 most common ways to fail and the surprise benefit of success. I will also share those 2 challenging real-life stories. Are you ready to start establishing your personal boundary? The first thing we do is inform our children about the changes coming. From now on, if you want something from me, you need to ask me nicely. I am not going to help anyone who does not ask me nicely. And asking me nicely includes all these things. Asking me in a calm, respectful voice, waiting quietly while I think about my answer. If the answer is yes, being appreciative and thanking me. If the answer is no, accepting that answer without arguing. All of that is what it means to ask me nicely. Our only goal at this point is to deliver that message. That's all. No lectures, no bringing up how horrible they've been in the past, none of that. Keep it as clean and baggage-free as possible. And pick a good time to share this announcement, when everybody is reasonably happy and not distracted, so no screens or phones. If your children start to argue, do not get sucked in. Say something like this and shut down the conversation somehow. You don't always ask me nicely for things, and that needs to change. And that needs to change, that's a phrase every parent should have memorized. It is non-confrontational and very effective. There's no need to explain anything when we use that phrase. Just say it like whatever we're talking about is completely obvious. If the meeting is going well and you're feeling confident, ask a few questions to reinforce that message. If you can manage it, make casual and confident eye contact with your children as you wait for their answers. With young children, try these kind of questions. How will you ask me for something from now on? What will you do if I say yes? What will you do if I say no? With older children, try questions like this. Do you think there is anything unreasonable or unfair about having to ask me nicely? Will you ask me nicely from now on? Children rarely object to these kinds of questions, almost never. Unless we don't ask them nicely, unless we don't treat them with respect. In that case, there will probably be pushback. And that pushback is totally legit. If we are not modeling respect, we have no right to expect it. And I don't want to hear any children need to behave no matter what. Good luck with that. Our job is to lead by example. That's how kids learn. Now that we've informed our children, we've given them that message, when a child asks us rudely for something and gets upset when we don't accept their disrespect, we want to be able to refer back to this conversation. Remember, we already talked about this. Word to the wise. Do not inform your family of the plan until you are ready to back it up and follow through. And you are modeling treating your children with respect and asking them nicely. We also need to make sure we don't set our kids up for any broken expectations. If we know the answer to our child's request is going to be no, or even a maybe, we must make sure we do not give the impression that they can have or do whatever they ask for as long as they ask nicely. If they think asking nicely gets an automatic yes, the first time we have to say no is not going to be pretty. We must be perfectly clear. I will not even consider your request until you ask me nicely. Or I'm not going to give you any kind of an answer until you speak to me respectfully. Figure out a phrase or two that works for you and practice it. If we know the answer is yes, and our children are young, we can be a little bit more positive and encouraging. I would love to help you tie your shoe, but only when you ask me nicely. So, be careful. No miscommunication or false expectations. As I mentioned in part 1 of this video series, not accepting any disrespect from our children when they want something from us is an always enforceable consequence. It is always enforceable because only our behavior is needed to enforce it. We are not depending on our children's behavior at all. Keep that in mind as we go through the following scenario. Are you ready? 6-year-old Lucas comes flying around the corner and demands something to eat. I'm so hungry. Get me some cookies before I starve. And not those yucky oatmeal ones. Before a single word comes out of our mouth, before we do anything, these two goals should be scrolling across our minds in big, bold, capital letters. Do not trigger. Do not engage. Can you see them? Do not trigger. Do not engage. Write them on your hand if you need to. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, the first goal, try not to trigger Lucas. We want our words, the tone of our voice, and our body language to have no edge to them. No baggage, no nothing. We want our response to be completely neutral. Now, I don't know if I should be telling you this, but yes, we can stray from that a little bit and still be successful in the short term. But if we keep our responses neutral, this whole shutting down disrespect process will go much faster. Now, Lucas might get upset or triggered anyway. That's okay. We just keep our response as neutral and non-triggering as possible. The second goal, try not to engage with Lucas. Do not correct his behavior. Do not challenge him in any way. Absolutely no engaging on his level. How dare you speak to me that way? None of that. Not a single word. We have no need to defend ourselves or be upset because we are a firm, friendly robot with a plan. And we need to stick to that plan. Lucas, when you ask me that way, the answer will always be no. Unless you ask me nicely, I am not going to do anything for you. Why do you think I'm not responding to you? Now, we can only use that one if we've warned Lucas ahead of time that we're not going to respond to his rudeness. And sometimes it helps to make it less personal, especially if we have overly sensitive children. I won't give cookies to anyone who asks me that way. That way the child doesn't feel singled out. So those are 4 pretty good options, but you need to find and practice calmly in front of a mirror language that suits you and your personality. How we deliver these responses is just as important as the words we use, if not more so. We do not want our tone or body language to escalate the situation or trigger Lucas unnecessarily. We do not want our tone or body language to communicate that we intend to engage with Lucas. Remember, no triggering, no engaging. We simply say our line and look away, or look busy, or look distracted. Lucas has all the information he needs. We have given him a simple choice. He can ask us nicely, or he can ask us rudely. What he chooses is completely up to him. We will calmly and respectfully honor whatever choice he makes. We will be fine no matter what Lucas decides. If Lucas won't ask us nicely, that's his problem, not ours. That's the impression Lucas needs to get when he looks at us. We're okay if he doesn't get any cookies. We have no intention, of compromising our personal boundary just because Lucas wants some cookies. The more convincing and believable we are, the sooner Lucas will figure this whole thing out. If he asks us nicely, we will consider his request. If he doesn't, we won't. It's that simple. Because Lucas is hungry and wants something to eat, he is highly motivated. We have that advantage. Time is on our side. How this plays out is completely up to Lucas. What if Lucas yells at us? But I'm really hungry. What if Lucas runs away angry? What if Lucas calls us some really mean names? What if Lucas has a meltdown or tantrum? Okay, so the kid's not happy. We must not get distracted or sucked in by Lucas's reactions. All we care about, every single one of those reactions mean he has chosen to not ask us nicely. Lucas made his choice, and we will honor that choice. We don't try to get Lucas to change his mind. We don't show disappointment or anger. We simply honor his choice because we are a firm, friendly robot with a plan. If Lucas says, I hate you, you are the worst mommy ever, or daddy, do not take the bait. Did you hear me? Do not take the bait. Do not defend yourself. Do not retaliate. Do not get sucked into any kind of counterproductive confrontation. Try not to appear hurt or rattled. I know, that's not going to always be easy, but try your best. Remember, we are a firm, friendly robot with a plan. I'm sorry you feel that way. That's all we say. And then we say nothing more. There is a saying used in sales training, the next person who speaks loses. I sold cars right out of college and could not believe how well that worked during negotiations. Now, we shouldn't follow that phrase literally or inflexibly. Instead, we say the bare minimum necessary and then we stop talking. Don't be afraid of silence or awkward, uncomfortable moments. We are a firm, friendly robot with a plan, and we have all the time in the world. Remember, we are not the one who wants something. I am sorry you feel that way is the best response to Lucas's outburst. What else could we possibly say that would be better than that? Think about it. That's a great response. This approach is really hard for many of the parents that I work with. I get a lot of, what about this? What about that? Am I just supposed to let him talk to me like that? In this situation, the short answer is yes. Normally, we should not let disrespectful behaviors go unchallenged, like we are doing here with Lucas. We do not want our children thinking they can treat us poorly and we won't do anything about it. But in this situation, we ignore and tolerate our children's disrespect because refusing to consider their request is far more powerful than anything else we could possibly do or say. We don't want to undermine that. We don't want to undermine that reality with any counterproductive distractions or arguments. That's why we ignore or tolerate the disrespect in this situation. It might look like we're being passive, but we're not really. We are implementing a very effective plan. Excuse me. In the long run, Lucas is not going to get away with anything. We are playing for keeps here. Maybe Lucas will be really rude to us this time, but we won't engage with him and he won't get what he wants. Maybe Lucas will be really rude to us the next time, but we won't engage with him and he won't get what he wants. And maybe the next time, Lucas will be even more rude, even angry. Maybe he hates what we're trying to do, but we won't engage with him and he won't get what he wants. Do you hear the pattern? That is what it means to not accept any disrespect. Yes, Lucas is saying disrespectful things, but we do not accept them. We do not let them get to us. We ignore them and try not to distract or trigger Lucas or engage with him in any way. The only thing we want Lucas thinking about, and I do mean the only thing we want him thinking about, when I ask rudely, my parents won't engage with me and I never get what I want. Please hear me. That reality is the teacher, not our words. When I ask rudely, my parents won't engage with me and I never get what I want. That reality is what will get Lucas to change his behavior. This is where some of us really blow it. We don't let that reality be the teacher. We don't give that reality enough time to do its work. We just can't keep our mouths shut to save ourselves. We don't have the patience, or we panic. We start talking and ruin everything. If we can't keep our mouths shut because we react before we think, or we let our feelings drive our behavior, our children will keep drawing us into power struggles with the hopes of winning or wearing us down. As long as they can keep us talking, they have a chance to win, and they know it. That's why I keep repeating, we are a firm, friendly robot with a plan every 10 seconds. We need to be in control of ourselves. We need to rise above Lucas's unacceptable behavior and stick to the plan. If we can't keep our mouths shut because we don't like or we're afraid of confrontation, and we are tempted to appease our child's disappointment, frustration, or anger just to keep the peace, we just can't stand that kind of dissonance, that kind of awkwardness, or that kind of tension, our children will take full advantage of that and just keep pushing and pushing until we collapse and give in. Or sometimes they push so far that we might just lose it and start screaming. Okay, that doesn't help anybody. Not having the confidence to confront our children effectively is another reason why we need to be a firm, friendly robot with a plan. If we don't feel strong or confident, we can hide inside our robot and pretend we are strong and confident. That approach has actually helped many parents who are afraid to stand up to their children. From inside, we can calm down our fear, we can build up our confidence, and we can play the part. We need to do our best acting and stick to the plan. Now, that can be scary, especially at first, but each success sharpens our skills and builds our confidence. Do you remember that whole the next person who talks loses thing? That definitely applies here. Misguided and unnecessary words spoken in anger or appeasement will only mess things up. We need to accept and become comfortable with that reality. We need to imagine quietly waiting without words. How do we keep our mouths shut? How do we stay on track? What does that feel like? How do we become a firm, friendly robot with a plan? I keep mentioning practicing in front of a mirror. I'm not kidding about that. We need to sharpen our skills. We need to work on our confidence. And we need to be prepared. Imagine yourself calmly and confidently developing those new parental superpowers. Okay, let's go back to the dialogue starting at the beginning. So Lucas comes flying around the corner. I'm so hungry. Get me some cookies before I starve, and not those yucky oatmeal ones. Lucas, when you ask me that way, the answer will always be no. Mom, I'm starving. We say nothing. Mom, get me some cookies. He is getting more and more upset. We say nothing. Lucas has all the information he needs. Why are you being so mean? We say nothing. I hate you. I am sorry you feel that way. You are the most horrible mom. Why can't you get me cookies? We calmly look Lucas in the eye. Lucas, we already talked about this. Lucas storms off to his room yelling as he goes, when you go to sleep, I will climb on the counter and eat all the cookies by myself. The next time we see Lucas, we greet him warmly. We do not mention the cookie incident. We do not hold his past behavior against him. We are a firm, friendly robot with a plan. Now, let's say the dialogue went this way. You are the most horrible mom. Why can't you get me cookies? We calmly look Lucas in the eye. Lucas, we already talked about this. Lucas looks right at us with a frustrated and angry face. Mom, can I please have some cookies? We look at Lucas calmly, firmly, encouragingly. Lucas, you need to do better than that. Mom! Lucas, may I please have some cookies? Yes, you may. Thank you for asking me nicely. I will get them. Since when don't you like the oatmeal cookies? Your sister loves them. Okay, that's a happy ending, but what if it isn't a happy ending? What would that look like? May I please have some cookies? Thank you for asking so nicely. I really appreciate that. Dinner is in less than an hour, so no cookies right now. I am so sorry. I know how hungry you are. We wait to see how he reacts, not because that's going to make us change our mind about anything, but it'll give us a clue how best to respond. Mom, I asked nicely. I know you did, and I really appreciate that. That was wonderful. I wish we could eat cookies whenever we wanted to, but we can't. Do you want to have the cookies for dessert? But Mom, I'm hungry now. I know you are, and I am sorry about that, but dinner is coming. When we have to say no, we should be as kind and empathetic as possible. We also need to show our appreciation for anything the child does right. We're not trying to win any kind of a power struggle here. We are simply comforting a child who is disappointed, frustrated, or angry. We do the best we can without lowering our personal boundary or breaking any kind of family rules. Did you notice that we never held Lucas' negative behavior against him? That is pretty hard for many of the parents I work with. But let's think about that. Why would we want to give Lucas an extra and completely unnecessary reason to be angry or resent us? How could that possibly help? No, we shut our mouths and keep things as clean as possible and stick to the plan. A firm, friendly robot never holds a grudge. So, what do you think? Can you see yourself doing this? Can you imagine being calm and in control of yourself? Can you imagine yourself being relaxed and confident? Can you imagine this becoming your new normal? Olivia, 15 years old, wants a ride to the mall now. Her friends just called from the mall and some boys they like are there, and that's why the big hurry. Let's see how well the mom sticks with the plan. You're about to find out just how limited my theatrical range is when it comes to different characters, especially when they're upset or angry. Olivia is going to sound a whole lot like Lucas. Are you ready? Here we go. Mom, hurry! I need to ride to the mall. Get your keys right now. I'm not going to do anything for you when you ask me that way. Mom, I asked you nicely. If I ask you nicely, will you give me a ride? I can't promise that, but I can promise I won't even think about your request until you do. Mom, I can't believe you. I need to be there right now. What's wrong with you? Olivia's mom says nothing. Mom, I need a ride now. Olivia, you know what you need to do. I hate this stupid ask me nicely crap. None of my friends' moms are like that. Why can't you just be normal and not so weird and mean? You are the worst. Why can't you just give me a ride? I will be in the kitchen if you need me. Mom! So, what do you think? How would you have handled that situation? Did you notice how the mom shut down any false expectations? Will you give me a ride if I ask you nicely? I can't promise that, but I can promise I won't even think about your request until you do. Did you notice how the mom only said what she needed to say and nothing more? She did not defend herself or challenge Olivia in any way. She did not let herself get sucked into any kind of a power struggle. She stayed focused on keeping her personal boundary intact and remaining calm and in control of herself. The mom even walked away at the end. I will be in the kitchen if you need me. Now, what if Olivia follows her mom into the kitchen and keeps arguing? Even though the mom is doing everything right and sticking to the plan? In this case, we need to keep maintaining our personal boundary, but we also have to shut down Olivia's arguing. In this situation, we use a separate consequence that targets Olivia's continued arguing. Olivia, you know I am not going to argue with you. But if you keep arguing with me, I will start the timer on my phone, and every minute you continue to argue will cost you $1 from your allowance. Now, that's an always enforceable consequence because it doesn't require any cooperation from Olivia. We simply deduct the appropriate penalty from Olivia's allowance. Consequences will be covered in depth in my next video series about consequences, but that's just a little sneak peek right there. Let's say Olivia goes into the kitchen and asks her mom nicely for a ride. The mom says yes and gives her a ride. But during that ride, Olivia is not pleasant. Mom, why can't you go any faster? If you had just given me a ride when I first asked you, I would be there now. The mom pulls the car over, out of traffic, and just sits quietly. Mom, what are you doing? We're almost there. I'm not going to drive you anywhere when you treat me like that. Mom, I don't have time to play your stupid games. The mom turns the car around and drives home. Olivia is really upset and says some pretty unpleasant things on the way home. The mom does not react or engage or try to teach Olivia anything with words. She lets the consequence of coming back home do the teaching. The mom has a personal boundary, and she is going to maintain that personal boundary no matter what Olivia tries to do. Okay, that last bit was a little intense. Would you have had the confidence and determination to do something like that? Could you defend your personal boundary like that? Sometimes, especially if our children have been treating us really poorly for a long time, if they've been getting away with murder with their behavior, it might take some pretty dramatic lessons to turn things around. But it usually only takes one or two big lessons if the parent remains committed, consistent, and determined. The message we want to get through to our children loud and clear, without any distractions or unnecessary conflict: if you want me to do something for you, you need to treat me nicely. We don't need to make it any more complicated than that. And as I mentioned before somewhere, children are not going to complain about that, because how can they? If you want me to do something for me, you have to treat me nicely. That's not the issue. So we need to stick to the plan. That is what our actions need to communicate. That we are not going to be cooperative or engaged if we are not being treated properly. The more convincing we are, the quicker our children will figure this whole thing out. And they will figure it out. even someone like Olivia, if we just stick to the plan. Just wait till you hear the first real life story in part 3 of this video series. Up to this point in the video, the standard we have used is ask me nicely. If our children ask us nicely, we will gladly consider their request. If they don't ask us nicely, we won't. Now it's time to look at that standard a little bit closer. How nice is nice enough? Really nice? Reasonably nice? Sort of nice? What we decide, the standard we hold our children to, is incredibly important. Success or failure important. There are 2 critical challenges in our plan that can determine success or failure. The first challenge is not engaging with our children until they make an effort to ask us nicely. The second challenge is deciding if that effort is good enough. If our children make no effort to ask us nicely, that's easy. We don't engage, they don't get what they want. It's pretty simple. But, excuse me, if our children do make an effort to ask us nicely, we need to decide if their nice is nice enough. So, how nice is nice enough? You might not want to hear this, but complete compliance is the minimum. Nothing short of calm, polite, and respectful is acceptable. I cannot overstate how important this is. We have to be tough on this. There are some exceptions with younger children that I will cover in part 3 of this video series. Now, most kids with any kind of ambition at all will usually try to find the minimum they have to do to get what they want. They will test us to find out what they can and can't get away with. Let's say, for whatever reason, our children have decided they don't want to ask us nicely. So they ask us quite rudely for something. We calmly let them know we won't engage with their rudeness. Now our children have to decide what they're going to do next. Most likely, they will size us up and take a test shot at us. If they think they definitely have the upper hand, or if they are used to getting their way and what they want, even though they behave very badly, they might just repeat their rude request, but a little louder this time. If they are not so sure they have the upper hand, they might nicen up their request a little bit and see if that works. If they think we look pretty determined, they might try sort of nicely, while still hanging on to their bad attitude. Or they might try something in between those options. There's all kinds of different approaches that they could use. Here's the thing about all of those approaches, or all of those responses. None of them meet our standard, and our children know it. They are trying to get us to play a psychological game of tug of war with them. If they can get us to play that game, they have a chance to win on their terms. That's why they try so hard to get us to take the bait and engage with them. Here's the real underlying problem with that. When our children's best energy and their best thinking are being used to outplay us or manipulate us, they are not trying to learn how to behave better. So it's very important we do not play their game. And how do we do that? Our children cannot play tug of war with us if we never pick up our end of the rope. When our children look at us, they need to see we have absolutely no intention of picking up that rope. We are a firm, friendly robot with a plan. We simply disengage and let our children figure it out. And they will soon enough if we stick to the plan. So don't be afraid of complete compliance being the minimum. Our children will reach whatever standard we hold them to, if we hold them to it. Remember, they want something from us. We have all the leverage we need. If our children are pushing back really hard and we are sick and tired of all this hassle, It can be tempting to lower the standard just a little bit, or to try to help them or coach them or even bribe them. But don't you dare. In this situation, when we don't require complete compliance, two things happen. The first thing, our children will keep trying to pull us into power struggles and psychological games of tug-of-war for the rest of our parenting lives. They will try anything they can think of. Some of us are living that life right now. Everything's a battle. If we say no and our children refuse to give up, even though we are not engaging with them, if we are sticking to the plan and doing everything right, but our children are still arguing with us, we need to apply an additional and separate consequence for that. Remember how the mom gave Olivia an always enforceable consequence when Olivia came into the kitchen and kept arguing with her? Here are two more examples of those kinds of consequences. The first one, if you don't stop arguing with me right now, I will not drive you to your game today. Now, if we say it, we have to do it. So think before you speak. If you really do need to drive him to that game, do not use that right as a threat. Okay, the second example. Because you are not accepting my no, and you are still arguing with me even though I asked you nicely to stop, I will start the timer on my phone, and every minute you keep arguing equals 10 minutes of extra chore time. Will you accept my no answer right now, or should I start the timer? If the child does not comply right away, start the timer. Remember, we do not bluff, we follow through. Otherwise, our words are empty and useless. The second thing that happens when we don't hold our children to complete compliance, we are cheating them. Yes, you heard that right, cheating. We are cheating them out of a perfect opportunity to develop self-regulation and emotional maturity. When children have to get themselves under control, that is quite a challenge for them. Getting control and overcoming strong emotions, desires, and natural impulses takes real effort. It's hard work. And that work is internal work our children have to do by themselves. We cannot do it for them. They have to struggle and work their way through it. But that struggle and effort is exactly what produces self-regulation and emotional maturity. That's where those things come from. And it's our job to give our children all the opportunities and guidance they need to become self-regulated and emotionally mature. Requiring complete compliance when it comes to asking us nicely is a wonderfully effective way to do just that. So, do not cheat your children with low standards. They will suffer for it later. Children who never learn how to control their emotions or self-regulate are not happy children, and they are not fun to be around. Like I said in part one, we need to help our children overcome their disrespect and disrespectful behaviors for their benefit. Establishing and maintaining our personal boundary is one of the best ways to do that. One more thing before we finish. If our children are not putting in the effort they should, if they have to be constantly reminded, we need to tighten things up a bit. Because you keep forgetting to ask me nicely the first time, and I have to keep reminding you, from now on, I'm not going to remind you anymore. If you ask me rudely for something, the answer will always be no. No second chances. Do you understand? Our children always asking us nicely the first time without being reminded is one of our long-term goals. We want that to become a part of who they are. We need to keep moving our children forward until they get there. Remember, they will reach whatever standard we hold them to, if we actually hold them to it. Well, that concludes part 2 of this 3-part series. See you in part 3. In part 3, we will wrap things up with a number of topics, including the 2 most common ways to fail, or I should probably say the two easiest ways to fail, and the unexpected benefit of success. And don't forget about those two real-life stories. Thanks for watching. And remember, loving and effective is always the best way to go. One more thing before I go. I'm pretty excited about these videos. If these videos helped you, could you please help me spread the word? I'm not great at social media, but together we can really make a difference. Think of all the families we can help and encourage. So please like, subscribe, and definitely share. That's the most important. I can't do this without you. Thanks.